Welcome to Fit Strong Women Over 50, episode number 39. And welcome into the Becoming Ellie community, where Fit Strong Women Over 50 encourage and inspire each other. I'm Chris Brown.
And I'm Jill McCausland. But who is Ellie?
Becoming Ellie is named for Ellie because she's the Norse goddess of aging.
Legend has it that when she was challenged to a wrestling match with Thor, to everyone's surprise, she won. We decided to name our group Becoming Ellie because we want to be fit and strong to take on whatever unique challenges come our way as we grow into the second half of our life.
Yes, although probably not a wrestling match necessarily, but I like to be fit and strong, able to ride my bicycle long distances for fun with my friends, or lift everyday heavy things, like groceries or my grandnephews, or even my gardening supplies.
Yes, I like being able to lift my own suitcase and to be able to run for fun. On our Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, we discuss a variety of topics from eating healthy meals to working out and finding ways to stay motivated to be strong and fit.
We look for topics of interest to women like ourselves, and this includes finding ways to release stress and manage strong mental health. It's all part of it.
Yeah, we often speak with experts, and today we are pleased to bring to you an interview with licensed psychologist Holly Timberlake.
I'm very eager to talk with Holly because she is well respected in her field and has a different way of helping people to deal with stress, trauma, and anxiety. Let's go to the podcast. Holly is a licensed psychologist here in Ohio and a preeminent holistic alternative psychotherapist. Now, just to be clear, both Jill and I have known Holly Timberlake for years.
Yes, I know that Holly and I have known each other a long time. It's good to have you join us, Holly.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, welcome, Holly.
Thank you.
I know that you are an energy psychologist. And what does that actually mean, and how's that different from other types of psychology?
Well, of course, that's something I could talk about for a while, but I think to be really simple about it, you can think about it as emotional acupressure. The simple way that it's generally used is that we identify some issue or experience or belief or pattern that is upsetting to us, and we open up to that feeling and then use acupressure or tapping, EFT, many people have heard of EFT, emotional freedom technique, to then tap on our body, and then that actually helps the nervous system or the energy field, however you think of it, subconscious, to be able to release the upset or the charge around whatever it is. So we might experience it as anxiety or sadness or fear or disappointment or frustration. And that tapping pretty quickly helps bring down the level of upset so that we can feel much calmer. Our nervous systems are much calmer, and we can then actually think about how it is we want to respond in a situation, or we can feel calm and relaxed when we think about something that 10 minutes ago used to be really upsetting to us. So it's a very powerful way to bring down the stress and charge from current life and things that have happened in the past.
So tapping, what did you say? That was emotional freedom technique?
Yeah.
And so sort of how does that work?
So we have, most people know about acupressure, something about acupressure. And acupressure, when people are tapping on acupressure points, they're actually tapping on points along what are called meridians. And we have 12 basic meridians or surface meridians in our bodies. And with EFT, what we're doing is tapping on points that are associated with a point that's associated with each one of those different meridians. And what we understand about that is that that actually balances then the flow of energy in those meridians. It either balances it or it reverses it. So now the energy in our body is flowing in a positive direction rather than a negative direction or being actually blocked.
I think of when people get upset, I picture them pacing around or running their hands through their hair, or, they're getting really red in the face, kind of moving their hands around, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Is tapping, would you relate it somehow to similar to meditation, or it's along the same lines or totally different? How does it compare?
How it compares, I think, well, I'll just say a comment about mindfulness. So the aspect of meditation that's like mindfulness. What I say is I think that tapping and EMDR together are separate. EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. And it's another way of helping to bring down the effects of trauma and upset. But either one of them with mindfulness is like a perfect marriage. So meditation or mindfulness, it's like it's an experience of being able to move through our life kind of in a calmer way. Or with meditation, we actually calm down and quiet the functioning of the brain. And so we go from what some people refer to as a monkey mind, to a really quiet, centered, and peaceful mind. But the more upset we are, the more we live with anxiety, the more stressed we are, the harder it is to meditate, the harder it is to get into that place. And so that's one of the ways that this really helps us to increase the effects of meditation, for example. But what I find with meditation is that even though it helps us relax in the moment, and there's no question that it has carryover effects, so that, when somebody's meditating every day, they're going to go through their life feeling calmer generally and responding to life in a more positive way. But meditation in and of itself does not heal the effects of the past. It does not heal the effects of trauma. It does not really heal the effects of things like emotional neglect or ongoing stress. It helps us deal with it better, but not heal it. That's a pretty powerful statement. Yeah. That's generally pretty true. I think if somebody meditates, hours a day for years, they're going to get to a point where they're not really affected by their past. Does that mean they've really healed it? Not necessarily. So I'm really an advocate for the combination and the importance of doing the work, the deep emotional work to heal our past. And then when you combine that with meditation and consciousness and mindfulness, or what I like to say is heartfulness, then we have absolutely transformed our experience of ourselves and being alive.
Thank you. That's very well said. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Does that
I
answer your question?
I think so. Doing the tapping actually has a pretty quick, so it helps pretty quickly when you're having those blockage or stress or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how quickly it does work. And that's not to say that everything, can be cleared in 5 minutes. That's not true. But
if only, right? If only.
Right. Life would be totally different. But it does, very quickly bring it down. And one of the things that brings up for me is that until we learn about something like tapping or EMDR, which is a different but similar modality, we haven't grown up experiencing being able to feel something that's really upsetting to us and apply some kind of technique, and then for the rest of our lives, basically, be really calm about something that always used to really upset us. So in some ways, it's a different experience. People will, when they first start tapping, they'll feel a little better, and they're like, oh, I feel better. And I'm like, oh, but you can feel much better than what you feel. And it takes it's a little surprising, sometimes kind of startling to people.
So it occurs to me that some of our listeners may may not know anything about tapping. Mm-hmm. And I know you said that it's like emotional acupressure, and that you tap on points. Mm-hmm. But you also use mantras or statements or something. I'm trying to describe it maybe more basically so people have some sense of what it is.
So the process of it, there's numbers of ways to do it. People who know about it have heard about EFT. And Gary Craig is the person who came up with this sort of simple formulation for how to do this, which is known as EFT, but there's lots of variations on these themes. So some people use words, and initially, I've been doing this for 20 years now. And so when we initially started doing tapping, Gary Craig had talked about how important using language is. And I agree that using language can be really, really powerful. But one of the things I've discovered is that people trying to do tapping on their own, which they can very easily do, often don't do tapping because they say, I don't know what to say. And so now there are a couple of ways to be able to do tapping without using language. But the basic process is that you start out and you're focusing on feeling a particular charge. Say it's frustration. We're talking about stress. So say something's happened at work, or there's a dynamic or a pattern at work that, we regularly feel really stressed about. What we would do is to let ourselves feel that stress and feel it in our bodies, not just think about it in our heads, but feel it in our bodies. And then we start tapping. So if I was going to use language, I would say something like, even though I'm feeling this stress and frustration because of whatever it is, right?
A problem at work.
Yeah, this problem at work. My favorite phrase right now is, I love myself, or I want to love myself and feel great anyway. And then we would repeat that a couple of times when there's a certain spot that you're tapping on as you're saying that. And so that gets your whole system like really focused on, this is what the issue is. And I want to feel better. I love myself and I want to feel better. And then you start tapping through the points. And as you tap through the points, you're saying things like, this frustration and stress, this problem at work, and feeling all this frustration. And you tap through the points. There really are maybe about generally, 8, 9 points that we generally use now. And so you go through those points while you're tapping and saying those things, or focusing on that sensation. And then what I have people do is to go through tap through those points again, saying releasing. So I'm releasing this frustration and stress. I'm releasing this frustration and stress, this problem at work. I'm letting it go. And so basically that same thing. And you should go through it again, and then stop and take a nice deep breath and check in with yourself and notice like what feels different in your body. what you'll start noticing is that your body feels more relaxed. Your breathing is deeper. Your chest may feel, again, more relaxed, your arms. And then you check in with your emotions, and it's like, like it's not so upsetting to me now. It's not as upsetting. And maybe it's like, you know what? I don't really feel upset about it at all now. And then if somebody is still upset about it, then you kind of check in, like, what is it right now that is still there? What's still bothering me about it? And then you can tap on that. And then you check in with yourself again. So that's the basic process. Once we've done that, we go from feeling really focused on whatever the issue is and the upset is, and our body's tight. Our breathing is more shallow because our muscles are all tight, so we're all activated, and the limbic system is kind of in a bit of fight or flight. And as we bring all that down by that little bit of tapping, then we're able to say, all right, like, I feel I'm calmer about it. And a lot of times what happens is that people will then spontaneously kind of have these ideas about, oh, this is how I can deal with it, or now I feel more empowered, or now, you know what, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to do that. And so what happens is that our ability to problem solve comes back online, when before all we could focus on was the stress of it and the upset of it when it came up. So we become more effective in being able to navigate in our life because we have more access now to the part of ourselves that can do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So is there somewhere where people might go if they wanted to learn more about how to practice tapping? I mean, this is something you could do on your own.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There are numbers. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you put in tapping EFT, and that's all you put in, there are millions and millions, millions of people who are like, well, here's what I'm going to walk you through tapping for anxiety. There are probably millions of that just focused on anxiety. And they use their own language, and you can follow through with them. So that's one way to do it. There are different, like one of the widest known, let me say, there are two ways to get more information. And one is to look up Gary Craig and see the information that he's got. There's a place called EFT Universe, which is by Dawson Church, and actually it's an old site of Gary Craig's, and I think there's lots of information there. And then another way is that there's an organization now with a website called tappingsolutions.com, and this is a family, like siblings, who started this site, and their last names are Ortners, and they do a tapping summit. Well, they do a number of tapping summits now on, through the web every year, and so they'll have big name people on in terms of, personal development and growth, and people who have done incorporated tapping, like Jack Canfield is somebody who comes to mind, and he's the only one on the top of my head. But or before she died, who was the woman who did Louise Hay? So she had started doing tapping, and so they will have podcasts where you can tap along with people like that too. So that's another good way to learn more about tapping.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we could probably put a link into the show notes so that if listeners are wondering of different places. But, Holly, I noticed that you've been doing some mother-daughter retreats. And, I imagine that they are locally just now here in Northeast Ohio. But nonetheless, it's something that I'm finding very interesting. And I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah. Well, actually, my daughter and I have been doing day retreats. We're doing them once a quarter, once a season. And my daughter just recently got certified as a yoga teacher, although she's really been doing yoga or exposed to yoga since she was about 5 years old, because I've done yoga that long, not regularly, but I've done yoga like for a long time. And so she just got certified. It's really a love of hers. And we have started doing these day retreats that we call Reset and Recharge. And, the focus of them is a combination of meditation and yoga that, works for anybody, even if people haven't done yoga. And then I am taking people through a session on tapping where, they're coming up with, what's a stressor or an upset that I would really like to release, that if I could release right now, it would really help me feel like I've got more energy. It'd help me feel lighter and brighter. So we are combining those things for a day of like the benefits of yoga and the benefits of tapping and meditation, blending it all in together in a group setting that people just, it's like we do community building every time. And it just is a really wonderful experience for the day. And so, and people have felt like, it's been a great opportunity to take that day and really reset themselves for the season. When the earth goes through the times of the solstices and the equinoxes, there are lots of changes that happen in our bodies, which, so those times are kind of loosely or closely aligned with the change in the seasons. And so those are perfect times to really reset ourselves, get ourselves rebalanced and, clear and so that we've got this, better energy for moving through the next 3 months of, our life. So those are the ones that we've been doing. We started that about a year ago. And then in October, we are doing our first ever mother-daughter weekend retreat.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
A whole weekend.
A whole weekend. And we're both really excited about this retreat weekend. We've got, we're going to have about 8 to 10 mother-daughter pairs come in. And the weekend is designed for mothers and daughters to strengthen and deepen and delight in their relationships. And like I said, it's the first one we've done. I don't think, as far as I can tell, there's nothing like this happening anywhere. And so we're really thrilled to be doing it and excited about all the possibilities that can come from it.
Yeah, that just sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it sure does. So, I'm finding that I really enjoy spending time with my son now that he's an adult. I mean, it's just a totally different relationship than it's different than when he was a child, and it's different than the relationship I have with other adults. So what do you think makes working with your daughter special?
Whoa, so many things. I mean, it's, oh my gosh, just the opportunity to be sharing our energy, and sharing our gifts and our talents, and the ways our gifts and our talents work together is just a blast. I mean, it is really a blast. And I think it's such a privilege and such a blessing to be in this place where she and I are doing this kind of thing together. She's the one who approached me about doing these things, and that just, the impact that had on my heart when she said, Mom, I could really see us doing these things together was like, I mean, I don't even have words to describe how that felt. So, there's a closeness there that is unlike the closeness of many other relationships, and I know mothers and sons can have really wonderful relationships too. mothers and sons don't often do things together like retreats.
Right, right.
And so there's kind of a difference in that sense. But these are intergenerational relationships that can be the strongest intergenerational relationships we have, and there's something about, maybe particularly for us in the West, where I think in some ways, compared to other cultures, these intergenerational bonds have weakened a little bit, or maybe a lot in some cases. And so recognizing how much strength there is and how much having good relationships with our children, our adult children, how that gives us strength and resilience as parents and also as adult children is something that we've not really attended a lot to. I guess, just that the opportunity again to experience this with her and grow our relationship together as we are doing this and then helping other people to do it. I just come back again and say it just is such a blessing.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That was very profound, Holly. I think you really touched on what it's like to do something with your child, and particularly your daughter. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So many in our audience of listeners, our audience is made up of women over 50 who are working to be fit and strong and healthy. And I think a big part of being healthy is learning to deal with stress and emotional issues. We all have them. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to talk with you. And, you've said a lot about it already, but if you had, just a couple words of advice for our listeners, what would you say about that?
Two things. One is that learning and training ourselves to use like emotional first aid tools or techniques for dealing with stress makes a huge difference. We all know things like taking, a couple of deep breaths or going for a quick walk or things like that. There are other things, of course, and there are certain tapping things. You can tap actually or thump right on your sternum, and it's actually called the thymus thump, and that in the moment of experiencing stress, doing that helps you feel stronger and more resilient, and it helps bring down that experience of stress and helps you breathe deeper. So that's my go-to. Anytime I'm feeling stressed or anxious, like that is my go-to thing. So having go-to techniques that you can do in the moment and that you practice doing them so they become almost automatic is something that is really important, I would say. Some other things that I would add, particularly we're talking about women over 50, I think one of the most important things considering that is adopting a youthful attitude towards life. The more we let ourselves continue to feel aliveness in our bodies and a looseness and a freedom in our bodies, the better off we're going to be, the healthier we're going to be. So I'm always doing things like I like to bounce kind of when I'm going up and down stairs. I like to bounce and have my whole body be loose, It's like instead of feeling like I have to be very careful going upstairs, I'm like, oh, no, I'm having fun going up the stairs. And it sounds like a silly thing, but I think it represents, I think the effect of it is actually quite profound, to use your word, Jill. So having a youthful attitude, I think, is really important. Finding time for creativity is essential. Speaking our truth. Many women, we lived earlier in our lives being afraid to stand up and speak our truth because we were afraid we were going to hurt somebody, because we were taught we couldn't say what we felt because it would hurt somebody else. And so getting really clear about speaking my truth and saying what's real for me is really an important thing, so we don't walk around holding the frustration of not speaking that inside. That's another thing. I would say two more things. Well, I could say a bunch, but I'll choose these. Actually, I wrote a blog post as a result of I thought I'm just going to jot down a few things, and it turned into a whole blog post. So I've got a number of things on my blog post. So that's what I'm pulling from right now. But I would say befriend your body and your emotions. We need to be strong in our lives. I think one of the most important things is to trust ourselves. And to trust ourselves, we need to trust our emotions. We need to feel them and know how to navigate them and release them. We need to be in touch with our body, to love our body, have a body positive attitude. That is the amount that can help us bring down stress is huge, I think. And as a part of that is really loving ourselves. Loving ourselves it's something that grows. I can sort of say I love myself, and I may think that, or I may not think it. It turns out sometimes it's really hard for people actually to say that out loud, that I love myself. But growing in our ability to love ourselves, I think, is another really important thing. It's not an overnight accomplishment, but it is essential to being able to live in life and navigate a stressful life, or the stresses that come up in life, with much greater ease. So those are some of the ones that I would suggest.
That's great. I really like the adopting a youthful attitude, because one of the things that just sort of bugs me is when I hear people say, I can't do that because I'm a certain age. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there might be reasons why a person can't do something. So, I'm not denying that people have injuries and aches and pains and all that, but to attribute them to your age sometimes it really frustrates me. So,
well, I really liked the part about, going up, kind of hopping and bouncing up and down the stairs, because before you even said that, I was picturing skipping. It just seems like such a lost thing to do, but it's so fun. Right. And it's just so lighthearted. You can't be in a bad mood when you're skipping. You just can't.
Right.
That's true. And we don't skip enough. Boy,
Well, we don't.
Skipping.
Just a quick little skip. You just start hearing the music. It's great,
Right. I love that. I think skipping might be one of the, there are a few ways that we can get back to that childlike energy and wonder, and skipping is certainly one of them. So that's great. And I want to add that a couple of decades ago, I was listening to a Deepak Chopra, podcast. Well, we didn't call him that at the time, but it was about aging. He had a series about aging, and I remember him saying that one of the reasons why people age the way they do is that they look around at people who are aging, and this was maybe even more true 20 years ago, would say, subconsciously, it's like, oh, well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so we began to model ourselves at these subconscious levels after people who were older. When I heard that, I thought, oh, well, I am not doing that. I'm really not doing that. That just went right to my gut. And then in the intervening 20 years, we have a culture now where people are recognizing that aging, we have a lot more choice over how we age, or how we stay youthful as we live here longer than I think most people ever recognized before. So I think that attitude, is absolutely essential to being healthy and alive and vibrant as we go through the later years in our life.
Yeah, that's great. I agree 100% with that. And so, I think you already answered that. I was going to say, was there anything unique for women over 50? But I think you sort of said that, because when we're younger, many women tend to behave in terms of how they're running their life in terms of other people.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say those are a couple of the big things, like really getting to speaking our truth and recognizing that we need to give ourselves as much attention as we do others, and to make ourselves a priority, and our health and our well-being a priority. And as we're over 50, we have more opportunity to do that, because for most of us, our children are, if we have children, whether they're out of the home already, most of them probably are, and some of them are getting ready, so they're older.
Right.
And so we have more time and we have more space, and it gives us the opportunity to make some changes and different choices in our life. So that speaking our truth and, recognizing the importance of putting ourselves as a priority and loving ourselves is really important. And then the youthfulness piece. Some of the ways stress affects women who are older that we might not recognize are things like sometimes, if people's hair is falling out or their hair is thinning can be a sign of stress. Skin that's really dry or kind of wrinkling can be a sign of stress. Cuts and bruises showing up and not realizing that, it's like, where did I get that bruise? Like, that can be a sign of stress. Cravings can be a sign of stress throughout our whole lifetime, but those kind of things can continue for older women. So recognizing some of these things that we might not initially associate with stress as stress can help us to motivate ourselves to, make some changes so that we are helping ourselves to, release the stress in our lives and improve the health in ourselves in ways we, maybe hadn't thought of. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we were talking about speaking your truth and making yourself a priority and looking for ways to relieve stress. But I'm wondering if you have some other suggestions to folks about lifestyle, whether it's food or exercise or sleep or anything else.
Yeah, for sure. So I really advocate that it's really important to eat for your metabolic type and to learn enough about your body that you're eating in a way that really nourishes your body. In terms of stress and anxiety, which you might think of as just an intensification of an experience of stress, it turns out that eating things like gluten can increase anxiety, so therefore increase our reaction to life events. There's some things about many people, it turns out, their bodies have a difficulty absorbing B vitamins. And B vitamins, as you probably know, are really associated with our ability to protect ourselves from the effects of stress. So those are big components. So eating in a really healthy way is really important. Eating sugar, increases our stress. Activating the insulin or having insulin spikes really is a tremendous drain on our body and our resources. So those things are really important. Getting enough sleep, sleeping well, sleeping deeply, going to sleep more early in the evening, all of those things, increase our ability to be resilient in the face of stress. And there are lots of things. A lot of people have challenges sleeping, and there are a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves sleep better. So, exercising, moving, doing yoga, being really flexible in our body, being strong and, having that sense of strength, all of those things help. Reaching out for social support, being outside in nature, yes.
Yes.
Yes, do all of those things.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So can we ask about how you eat? Do you follow any particular way of eating?
Well, yeah, it turns out, and I discovered this late in my life. I was in my late 50s, mid 50s, when I discovered that I actually had celiacs, which is what they refer to as a disease that comes from people who are genetically intolerant to gluten, eating gluten. And it has an effect on your body that up until recently, people didn't really recognize much. And so since then, I don't eat gluten. In fact, I don't eat grain. I have O blood, and years ago I started reading about eating right for your blood type. And it seems to me that especially for people with O blood, that what they say about that is really pretty accurate. So I actually eat a more ketogenic or a very low carb diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that now for that part of it. I've been doing for a couple of years. I mean, I've been on this journey, I think, with how I eat for quite some time. And I keep, as I'm able to navigate letting go of one thing or another thing, I progressively have been improving the quality of how I nourish myself with food. And part of that too is that I eat organically as much as I can, because I think that's really pretty important for our health too. But yeah, so those are a couple things. I have that. I was telling you about the not being able to absorb B vitamins, and that's referred to as MTHFR, which stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate.
Oh my.
Reductase, which nobody will remember, but basically it's a methylation issue, and it is about your body's inability to absorb B vitamins. But there's supplements you can take to do that. It can be a little more complicated than just popping folate supplements, but there are ways to help your body navigate that. So that's another thing that I do. I also have a very sensitive digestion, partly probably from all these years of being affected by eating gluten. And so I have a challenge. I have difficulty eating nightshades. And I guess this is something that more and more people are becoming aware of. But nightshades include things like tomatoes and peppers and potatoes and eggplants, and there's some other unusual, less well-known foods that are in that category because they cause more inflammation for people who have really sensitive digestions. That's the short story.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
But yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, as you know, our podcast is called Fit Strong Women Over 50, and there are lots of ways that different people define fit, but I'm wondering, how do you define fit?
I would say fit is living your life with just a lot of radiant aliveness. Like the more aliveness, the more energy we have access to within, to me, that's being fit, it requires a holistic approach, right? So fit is being nutritionally fit and being emotionally fit, being relationally fit, being physically fit. So, we could use fit as a word to describe being healthy in all these different aspects, really essential aspects to our well-being in our life, including spiritually fit. So,
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A wonderful thing about being over 50 is that we are a bit older and wiser now, even though we're having a youthful attitude about it. What do you wish that you knew when you were younger? That is, if you could tell your younger self some words of wisdom, what might they be?
Well, first thing is to not eat gluten. And my whole life would have been different if I wouldn't have eaten gluten. But so that's the first thing. I think the second thing that comes to my mind is not to be afraid of my emotions. Of course, I need to know ways to be able to release them, to not be afraid of them. Another one that comes to mind is to know, which means kind of to know in your body, to get it through and through that I am enough. And as I say that, I almost have goosebumps. It's like the importance of recognizing that we are enough just the way we are. We don't have to be thinner. We don't have to be smarter. We don't have to be more successful. We don't have to be more outgoing. We don't have to be bolder. We don't have to be anything other than who we are. And the more we believe that, the more we can feel that in our bones, then the more our true selves begin to emerge through our daily lives.
You gave me goosebumps. Yeah. I definitely have goosebumps on that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are some of the biggest ones I could say.
Yeah. I have loved talking with you for this time and appreciate you being on our podcast so much. And I'm wondering if our listeners want to find you to ask a question or get more information or even figure out how they could attend one of your retreats or how would they look for you? How would they find you?
My website is hollytimberlake.com. So the things, the events that I'm doing, I do group coaching sessions and the retreats are on there. My email is on there, holly@hollytimberlake.com. I also have a Facebook page, which is todaystapping.com. That would be another way to connect with me or, access. Yeah, access.
That's on Facebook, you said?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we'll make sure that we put links in the show notes for the listeners that want to connect.
Right.
Holly, I can't thank you enough for being part of our podcast today for the Fit Strong Women Over 50. It's just been a joy.
Oh, I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a delight to be with the two of you.
Oh, yeah, it's good to hear from you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. Yeah, to feel our connection this way. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thank you for what the two of you are doing. As we've been talking, I have been thinking about like some of the questions that you're asking and just loving the fact that the two of you are offering this service to this group of us in the world. I can only imagine, the kinds of things that come up as you're doing these podcasts and how and maybe I can't imagine everything, I'm sure, but it just feels like such a great service, and I really want to thank you.
Well, thank you. One of the things we realized is that the internet has no shortage on fitness and health but there's not a lot that focuses on women over 50.
Mm.
I mean, there's just, so we're not Instagram fitness models, and there's just lots of different things that we wanted to weed through, and Chris and I decided, well, let's just do it ourselves.
Mm.
Well, it's so fun to talk to people like yourself that is an expert in a field so that we learn more about some of the things that are available to us, and we can grow so much after 50. I mean, we have the second half of our lives to enjoy. I know I'm getting more out of this than I'm giving. So
That's true. That's true for me too.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
Thanks so much for being part of this, Holly.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, very interesting information. I appreciate that Holly was willing to talk with us and explain a little bit about the unique attributes of harnessing energy. I've had a little experience with combining guided meditation and tapping, and I have to say it can really help with anxiety and stress.
Yes, it's unusual and not the first thing people think of when they are looking for a way to reduce stress. I did tapping after my husband died, and it really helped me then with dealing with stress.
I can't imagine anything more stressful. For those who might be dealing with low levels of anxiety or have tight neck muscles from stress, it might be worthwhile to try to do something a little different. Tapping and meditation seems like an interesting way to go. Exploring alternative solutions makes sense to me.
Well, listeners, we're interested to find out what you think. Have you ever tried tapping or meditation as a way to reduce stress? What were your results? Send us an email at jill@becomingellie.com or leave us a voicemail at 330-970-6662. And if you're outside of the U.S., you'll need to use the U.S. country code of 001. So it's 001-330-970-6662.
And please visit us at becomingellie.com. That is becomingellie.com. 2 L's, 1 I. And be sure to subscribe.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening. We'll be bringing another podcast soon.
Bye.